There are many obstacles that can block the path to a successful software project. When you come across one, it helps to think like a seasoned hiker and follow the trail marked by blue blazes around the problem so that you can get back on course and keep moving forward. Welcome to Blue Blazes Podcast. I'm your host for the journey, Jay Tower, and I'm a partner and principal consultant at Trailhead Technology Partners. In this series, we talk with industry experts who share their best tips for avoiding the pitfalls on the path to successful software projects. My guest on this episode of Blue Blazes is Sam Basu, an author, speaker, Microsoft MVP, and the lead developer advocate at Uno Platform. Sam's been building in the .NET ecosystem for many years. These days, though, he's focused on helping developers ship modern cross-platform .NET apps and doing it with the kind of productivity boost that only Uno Platform can provide. In our conversation, Sam and I break down what Uno Platform is and where it fits into the larger .NET cross-platform landscape. We dig into the practical implications of Uno's different rendering approaches, native UIs versus Skia, and why that matters for performance, consistency, and enterprise use cases. We also get into the tooling, Figma integration, and AI story that Uno has to offer. If you've ever wondered what it really takes to build a single .NET app that can run everywhere, then you'll really enjoy this one. So let's jump in. Well, hello, Sam, and welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, hello.
It's really good to have you again. I think you are my second guest to ever repeat, so you must have done okay last time.
Oh, nice. I am honored, but yeah, hey, we're good friends, and I'm always happy to come on.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk to you because last time we talked, you were in a different situation than you are now. So there's something very different for you to talk about that I think will be really interesting to our listeners and viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, different, but also in a way is like in the same .NET ecosystem, just a different, more vertical stack of things.
Yeah, exactly. Jay here. Just a quick break in the conversation to share how Trailhead can help you tackle your toughest business challenges. When you're navigating uncharted technology terrain, Trailhead creates custom software solutions that put you back on the path to success. Ready for the next step? Get started with an expert consultation at trailheadtechnology.com/offer. That's trailheadtechnology.com/offer. Now back to the conversation. Well, let's jump right into it then. So since we talked to you last time in this venue, you started working at Uno Platform. And my guess is that anybody in the .NET community will have at least heard of it, but maybe they'll only have a vague sense of what that is. So could you kind of give the elevator pitch? What's Uno Platform?
Yeah, sure. So Uno Platform, we feel, is the most flexible and mature open source stack for .NET developers to build true cross-platform apps from a single shared code base. But now you're going to iOS and Android for mobile. You're going to the web browser with WebAssembly. You're going to desktop and embedded systems with Windows, macOS, and Linux. So pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere people are, at least, right? Yeah, for both users that are using desktop Linux, right?
Right. Yeah, all three of them.
All three of them.
But no, it's gotten some use cases. Embedded systems. Like I think some PC manufacturers still boot up with a little bit of Linux, and there's definitely implications of this in the cloud, containerized systems, and other things. But for us with a .NET background, it really helps to just have one code base, so I'm not redoing it 5 times.
Yeah, I remember working years ago with a client. This was back in the .NET framework days, so this was before .NET itself was cross-platform, and they had a .NET development team, and they had a product that was probably C, if I remember right. And it was embedded on like network devices, switches and things that were running on Linux. And what they really wanted back then was to be able to make .NET applications that they could run on those devices, but it just wasn't an option back then. And now that's very much an option. And tools like Uno make stuff like that really easy. as well.
Yeah, it's a very changed landscape.
Hmm.
.NET 6.0 forward, it's all modular, it's open source, it's cross-platform, and whatever we do rides right on top of .NET. So we benefit from all of the performance tuning, we benefit from the tooling. So it's a nice, rich ecosystem to come into. .NET is in a good place.
Yeah. So Uno, you mentioned, offers not only iOS and Android, which is probably kind of a big chunk of what people want to use it for, but it also offers desktop, Mac, and Windows, and then also the web-based experience. But talking a little bit about that mobile world, where I'm guessing probably some majority of the use for Uno is in the market right now. There's a ton of options, I don't have to tell you, out there
Hmm?
for if you want to create cross-platform mobile applications. You can do React Native, you can do .NET MAUI, you can do Ionic, you can do Flutter, all these things, right? So when you think about those competitors, how do you think Uno really compares to those? What's the same? What's different?
Yeah, sure. So we look very closely at our competition, especially if you're
Sure.
talking the non.NET stack. So React Native, NativeScript, Flutter, and all of those things. And I think it's healthy to have competition. So we can look at the dev loops. We can see what else somebody else is doing better. While we want to position ourselves, but those stacks are really for the non.NET devs. And again, if that's what is gelling with the rest of your tech stack, absolutely go for it. But if you would rather do .NET because maybe you have expertise, maybe you have investments in .NET, and you want your front and back everything to be .NET if possible, then we want to be the most compelling solution. And yes,
Yeah.
in that realm itself, there are some options. .NET MAUI, like I have done that for quite a few years, and it's a solid foundational framework. We like to think that we go actually hand in hand. It's not an either or. We actually help maintain parts of the .NET stack that .NET
Mhm.
MAUI uses heavily, in particular some of the iOS and Android bindings, Skia rendering, some of the tooling. But MAUI does not go to Linux and WebAssembly. And tooling wise, since we are so vertical, like we own the whole stack, we can
Mhm.
just do a hell of a lot more. So that's where we come in. When you look at enterprise devs needing that productivity boost, needing one stack that they can build everything on, that's where we want to come in. And yes, and again, there are other smaller competition out there. We have battle cards, but I don't speak ill of competition because again, they're not here to defend themselves, and we would like to stand just on the shoulders of what we have done,
Right.
our docs, our support, our tooling.
And you mentioned Maui, and there's even kind of like a mode or a feature that you have in Uno that allows some compatibility between Maui components. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, especially if you look at enterprises who have investments in WPF or Xamarin and Xamarin Forms, we have a very nice migration path. But if you have done Maui in the past and now you want to reach those other platforms, you want to look at some of the design tooling, some of the AI tooling that we have, but you don't want to drop all the UI entirely, you can bring it over. We have something called Maui embedding, which essentially allows you to use the Maui rendering engine just to render all types of Maui things from Microsoft or from the ecosystem, and be able to embed that all of it in a Uno platform app. But again, the limitation there is we are only going to be able to do that to the places where Maui goes, and not to the places where the additional places where we go.
Right. And I find that something that's when someone's getting started, myself included, with Uno, like a thing that feels a little hard to get your head around at first is under the covers, these different rendering engines or rendering modes. So there's the native. In the web case, there's WebAssembly, and then there's something called Skia which you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about those different rendering modes, why they exist, what they're for, what's good about them?
Sure, sure. And again, it's just a natural evolution of how things have been in the cross-platform stack. So if you wanted to do native UI where your app looks like an Android app or an iOS app, then we can do native UI and for Windows and other places as well. But if you are building the next Facebook and if you want your app to look the same everywhere, which is a very common thing we see from enterprise customers, then a unified UI stack helps. And that's where our choice is Skia. So, clear choice between native and Skia. There is no right or wrong, but we do actually find Skia to be almost 5 times more performant because it's one unified rendering, and we can make it pixel perfect between iOS, Android, and WebAssembly, and Windows and Mac. So everywhere it just looks the same. It's faster, and you have complete control over the canvas and exactly how you draw things. And so it's preferred in some ways if you're wanting to do a true cross-platform, but then you have, sometimes you do want to cater to native UI. You want some of the accessibility things or other things that iOS or Android might bring. So it can be a mix and match if you want.
Okay. And then there's some platforms that don't support any other kind of rendering except Skia. Is that right?
Yeah, the web one, you and me are old. You might remember Silverlight days. We loved the dev experience of XAML in the browser, but the whole plugins model didn't go anywhere. So you mentioned like how .NET first stepped out of Windows, and those were the mono days, and we still have, bits and pieces of that. So the web stack of how we render, that's all Skia. And, that's the only way to go on the web.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so you also mentioned having full control of the full stack at Uno, and so we haven't really gotten into development tools, but there's plugins for people's IDE or editor of choice. There's also your own IDE, all kinds of really great features that come with that. Can you talk about those options?
Yeah. And actually, we explicitly chose not to have our own IDE. So our position is to be agnostic to you being on whichever OS, whichever IDE, and in this time and day, whichever AI agent that you want to be using. So we don't want to hold back your hands. You bring the tools that work the best for you. We just want to be working with it. So, think about Visual Studio, think about VS Code, Writer. We have extensions for each one. So that lights up more of the tooling things. But on top of those extensions, we can bring a lot more toolkits, a lot more, design system tooling. And then we can do things, again, since we own the whole stack, that are way above and beyond just what your IDE experience would be. So, you might remember back in the days of WinForms or WPF. In the Windows world, we have always had a rich design experience. Like you open up your IDE and you can, drag and drop things on your canvas, which is your app, and you can change up things quickly. It was very productive. We never got that recreated in the Xamarin or Maui worlds because it takes a lot of engineering to do that. And also, when you do that, there always is a gap between what is design time and what is actually runtime when your app is running. So we actually invested heavily to do that from the ground up, from scratch. We call it hot design, which is a very different take on it because this is not in the IDE. It's actually in your app itself. So when you build up your app, could be an empty app, could be a busy app, you essentially pause the app a little bit. So the app is still running, it's just in a suspended state. And we open up a whole visual interface designer right inside the app itself. And then you have all of your UI tooling, you have your visual tree, kind of like the HTML days, but you see all of the XAML markup. And then you can change up properties and everything stays in sync. So whatever you do in that design surface, all of your changes, your tweaks come right back to the IDE and your code. So it's like a nice sync happening between the IDE and your running app. And it's just a nice way to tweak on your UI design while your app is running.
So it almost reminds me of like F12 developer tools for
Exactly.
web developers. Yeah,
exactly.
But for mobile developers instead. Something that I think mobile developers wish they had for a long time.
This dev loop thing is always been a troublesome thing because you want to make a quick change and you want to see your app running, but it takes like minutes to deploy it package it up and throw it on a simulator or a device. So we want to cut down on that. We want to quickly see what your light mode and dark mode looks like. What does your app look like across multiple form factors? So all of those things are thought out. And this all works with hot reload in .NET. So hot reload and hot design kind of go hand in hand to keep that in sync.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're doing maybe like a drop shadow on a button and you just want to see what it looks like, but first you have to reload, compile and then upload to the device and then restart the app and then log in and then navigate to the screen, right? Like that's 10 minutes of work.
And the last thing that you mentioned, sometimes the one small thing that you want to change may be 5 screens down. So you have to navigate down in the app. So here in our design surface, you can also interact with the app. So you can navigate 5 screens down and then change that one small thing. And when you close the app, it's there in your IDE.
That's pretty cool. Nice feature.
Yeah, we try.
I like it. So you mentioned you can use your IDE of choice. So the supported ones are Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, and Rider. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
On any OS.
And on any OS that those things run on, obviously.
Right. Yep.
All right. So now, curiosity. What's your favorite and why?
Oh boy. So I go both ways. So I used to be a Windows only dev, but about 15 years back I switched over to a Mac, and I have not looked back because I like the hardware. I do run Windows on it. I do have virtual machines, and I do have a Windows box under my desk. So I do both. Visual Studio on Windows is a beast, and it always will be a very rich IDE, but it's a bit to get started. So my choice nowadays is almost always Visual Studio Code because it's so lightweight, so easy. Yes, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but I can get the extensions that I want. And it goes with me in my browser on Windows or on Mac. It's everywhere. If you look at the latest things with AI, some of the tooling integration is just better and quicker because they can move faster than Visual Studio.
Yeah, makes sense. And backwards compatibility a lot of times in Visual Studio is better.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've noticed that's different if you compare Uno to some of the similar technologies, that it uses this single project structure as opposed to multiple projects for each target platform. Can you talk about the pros and maybe some cons about that you've noticed?
Well, I don't know if there are a whole lot of cons because the downsides are well covered if you want it. So all of this, the whole industry has been learning as we went. So if you remember the early days of like Xamarin and even Xamarin Forms, that was how it used to be, where you had one solution and 5 different projects. And you quickly realize that when you have a big app with lots of bells and whistles, it becomes a maintenance nightmare because you're repeating NuGet packages everywhere. You are repeating the same code and linking code files all over the place, splash screens and fonts and images. Nothing is shared, so it becomes like a big nightmare of maintenance. So I am a huge fan of a single project, and I think .NET MAUI does the same thing, and others might as well. But you do have those platform-specific things still in there. If you wanted to do something very iOS specific, you can jump in and do one small thing. So that's not been taken away from you. But the benefit is now with tooling, we can, resize your images. If you give us a, scalable vector graphic, we will do our level best to make it scale nicely on all of the platforms. Your fonts, your NuGet packages, everything is in one place. So the pros are just heavy towards a single project.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems really convenient. So the structure actually includes some folders that are per target so that you can put things like the plist file for iOS, for example, that's specific to that platform can go in there. But you also have the ability to do customized views just within your view structure for a particular platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And ideally, you want to stay out of it as much as possible. But if you want a custom view and permissions, like you said, those absolutely have to go in the platform-specific folders because you might not want to build for every platform. So when you do a multi-targeted build, the build system looks in the platform-specific folders and just picks up the things that are platform-specific.
Makes sense. So when someone's creating a new app in Uno and the target is to make this an enterprise application at some point, or it's moving in that direction. What kinds of decisions should they be thinking about early on, about some of the options that they have that would be important for that as it scales?
Yeah, so my answer actually nowadays is different from what I would answer like even a few months back. So
Okay.
you have to think about all the things that you need, and we have SDKs and nice templates where you can pick and choose. Like, I want these platforms. Here's my runtime: .NET 9, .NET 10, or here are the features that I want. Maybe I want a PWA manifest. Maybe I want MAUI embedding. Maybe I want Skia. Maybe I want native. What's my CI/CD? So you think through all of that, and you start with your best guess, and then you can still add on things as you want. But AI is really changing up the game. So like how I start my app nowadays is different. Actually, I almost find myself not using the default templates, which sets you up nicely. But I almost find it more enticing to jump straight into screen usage at a time, and then build the backend as I go, as I need.
Okay. Well, that is the perfect transition to a topic I want to talk about, which is, at the time we're recording this in late December of 2025, you guys have just announced some of the really great new features, which of course it's late 2025, so some of them are AI features because that's what we all have to be doing right now. But I think what's really great is that at Trailhead, we believe in something that we call pragmatic AI. It's not just the AI for buzzword's sake or whatever, but it's AI and how can we actually use that to make things better. And I feel like you guys have done some really exciting stuff there to make not only your tooling but the end results better. Can you talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in the new
Yeah, sure. And
tools?
again, to your point, like, if AI is not pragmatic, you're just doing it for the heck of it. Because like, somebody is chasing something shiny. It
Yeah,
has to be usable at the
yeah.
enterprise level. It has to make you productive and not just, slow you down further, because now you have more things to review. So AI is, changing the way we interact and we live our lives in some ways, but definitely how we build software. The impact is huge, and you cannot just ignore it. So you have to make it work for yourself and for your stack. And context is everything. So without context, our large or small language models, they have come a long way. Yes, they can do web searches, they can look up docs, and they can tell you what the right thing they think it is, but it might not always be the right thing. And large language models, AI models, they don't often have the context of exactly what you're trying to do. To your earlier question, like, I'm trying to build an enterprise app. These are my requirements. These are my guardrails. This is my coding standard of my team. I need to stay within these guardrails. Don't just go wildly hallucinating over a question. So you have to keep those things in mind. So context is everything. So what we have done is trying to, again, stay agnostic, because again, you might like Claude code, I might like GitHub Copilot, somebody else might like Cursor, or there are so many of these. And again, AI models are not the same. So I personally find some of the OpenAI GPT models to be very quick, while things like Sonnet or Gemini are much more deeper thinking. So they're all over the place. And again, you need to pick something that works for you. So for us to be agnostic of all of that, so we chose what's called Model Context Protocol, which is thankfully a standard, and everybody realizes the need for a standard. This thing has evolved quite quickly. Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, they're all working on it. So we chose to expose our expertise and the deep platform knowledge that we have through MCP servers. And it's not just docs. So we have two servers exposing multiple tools. So there is a Una Platform MCP server, which is essentially, how do I start? So best, to your point, like best design principles as I start my app. So give me all the things that I need. Here are all the docs. So if you wanted to know how do I do a design pattern on a platform, you have all the docs and the latest ones to get you started. So that's the platform MCP. And then we have an app MCP, which is about app interactivity. Because a lot of times when we are looking at AI agents and we are saying, can you build me a app that looks like this, right? And you can have a lot of fun doing that. It misses the context of actually testing. Does your app actually do what you said you wanted it to do? Can you click on this button? Can you see what my app is doing? So we like to say your AI needs to have eyes and hands. So that's what the app MCP does. Like, it gives you, here's the visual tree of the app, here is the data structure, here's the data context, here are ways to click anywhere in the app, here are ways to take a screenshot. So the moment the AI agents see all of that, they stop guessing. And when you say, build me the next Facebook, it can actually create a UI and then test everything about the UI. So we are almost leaning into UI testing, like with Playwright type stuff in here. But your AI agent will have a lot more confidence pulling off those tasks because you have those MCP servers that are grounded. So 2 MCP servers with, a dozen plus MCP tools that are usable from any AI agent or IDE. So Copilot, Claude, Codex, Cursor, you name it. So that's what's, giving you the grounded context that you need to use AI. And then we have also built up a custom agent that, again, knows about the screens that you're building. So you can, quickly iterate about, build me a login screen. And then you give, compared to in your ID experience where it quickly makes changes, here you can pause and say, no, I don't like that. Go back and redo this button, or change up this, and then it keeps a history, and you could say, no, I like the fifth one that you got. That was the best one. Then it applies, and then you iterate over again.
That agent, does that run locally or does that run in the cloud?
That's a great question. So that, remember the hot design surface that I talked about? So that is in the design surface, the agent runs in there. So it's running wherever your app is running. So on desktop, on in your browser, or on other devices. So it's a local agent, but then it will have to call out to other things to get the things done. So,
MCP servers and things. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Oh, yeah, that's really cool. And we didn't mention it before, but you talk about this idea of kind of using AI to kind of design your app from scratch. You also have integrations with Figma, which is, I know, what a lot of people use. It's what we use at Trailhead for a lot of our more like grown-up design work that the developers aren't doing.
Exactly, and that's a good point. Grown up, because Figma is not for newbies. It's very busy. It's meant for professionals who know what they're doing. Right. But yes, to your point, we have always had that design to code. It's a hard challenge because on one side you have the luxury of a designer who creates something beautiful, and then it's up to us to make it look like that in our code, and most times it doesn't. So we take the first stab. You give it designs and templates and design systems. We could start with Material or Cupertino, and then you get XAML and C# that is with our UI, and it's pixel perfect to your design. But again, that's the starting point. And even that story, if you think about Figma exposing their designs through MCP, then our MCPs can read the Figma MCPs and have a better bridge to bring things over. But it's not an easy problem to solve, and this design to developer handoff is something that we are continuously working on.
If I'm a technical leader on a team and I've maybe now heard all this and I've taken Uno platform from something that I just kind of vaguely understood existed to now understanding like, oh, I see where this fits into the landscape, what types of apps I could build on it, how it works, what its advantages are. As I'm comparing that to all the other options that I have out there, like what do you think is kind of the checklist of if your team is like this, you're probably a pretty good fit for doing Uno?
Yeah, so if you have designers and you want to make that handoff easier, then definitely the Figma bridge helps. If you want to have a team which just wants to do .NET all across and might be, favoring XAML, but again, maybe you want C# markup. So again, all the flexibility that you want, but with all .NET things, and then going to all the places. That's the kind of vertical integration and owning the whole stack of your app. That's the kind of thing that suits us the best. But again, if you want to mix and match, that's fine too. Like maybe you have a team that's doing web apps with Blazor or React or Angular. We have modern web views, so there is nothing stopping you from bringing in your web UI and rendering it on a web view. And it's smart enough to realize which platform you're running on gives you the corresponding web view for Edge or Safari or Chrome. So you can mix and match, but really it is for .NET developers who want just a single code base that goes everywhere.
Yeah, that's great. Good summary. All right, Sam, the last question I like to ask everybody on the podcast is, we do this as a way to help people think about how to make their projects more predictably successful. And there's a lot of ways to mess that up. And there's also a lot of great tools like Uno that can help you improve the likelihood of success. So what other topics, what other guests can you imagine that would be useful to have here on the podcast?
Yeah, and that is super important because without predictability, your productivity is suffering. So I think frameworks and tools have come a long way, but talk about AI and predictability where nothing is deterministic, because like the same prompt is going to give you two different answers to passes. So what maybe I would love to hear is, again, like to our discussion where AI models being different. Like what if you gave the same prompt and same type of app that you're trying to build to Copilot, to Claude or Codex or Opus or Gemini? What's the experience like? Because they're all different. They all have their areas of expertise. So I would love to maybe talk to somebody like Mads Christensen, who runs Visual Studio, or let's say Burke Holland, or Pierce Bogan, who work on the VS Code teams, because they are also trying to shoot for developer predictability and productive. So they don't care which model you use. So I would love to maybe pick somebody's brains to say, I tried the same thing in 5 different ways, and here are the things that are different. Here's the kind of apps where you're better off using Gemini versus Copilot and things like that.
Yeah, that would be really interesting. Somebody who's tried that and figured out which ones are the best fit for different situations. I noticed that GitHub Copilot allows an auto mode for the selection of model, which is interesting. I'm always curious which one it's picking for different things and what that's based off of. So I'd love to talk to somebody about that sort of thing. That's great. Well, Sam, this has been really helpful. Thanks for giving us a quick overview of what Uno platform can help us do with cross-platform.NET development. And thanks for your time this holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me here. And, we are all about developers being successful, whatever we can do. I think folks like you and me who have seen frameworks and tooling evolve can, choose the things that really work and help us drive predictable results.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Sam, and looking forward to having you back, hopefully a third time.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
That's the end of this Blue Blazes podcast. If you're interested in hearing more conversations like this one with industry experts focused on how to make software projects more predictably successful, make sure to subscribe. Trailhead can be found online at trailheadtechnology.com, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Until next time, thanks for listening.